Why don't women support women? I've noticed this in ministry, so I know if it shows up there, that it shows up in every arena. Schools, teams, offices, small groups, social circles. There's a quiet struggle many women experience but rarely admit out loud. When another woman succeeds, something inside of us tightens. Not because we don't care about her, not because we don't want her to win, but because something whispers, if she gets that, then there may not be anything left for me. And that's scarcity. And scarcity is subtle. It feels like a warning, but really it's a wound. It convinces us that God blesses people on first come, first served basis. And if he's handing out purpose in limited supply, as if someone else's assignment somehow shrinks our own. And scarcity is powerful. It shapes our reactions. It affects our confidence. It turns someone else's celebration into our internal questioning. We start thinking, does her opportunity mean I've missed mine? Does her gift make mine smaller? Does her answer mean God is ignoring me? And because scarcity presses on fear, not faith, women begin to pull back from one another. We hesitate to cheer. We hesitate to support. We hesitate to celebrate fully. Not necessarily always out of jealousy, but out of a quiet insecurity that sounds like self-protection. But here's the truth. Scarcity hides this because God is not running out of blessings. He's not rationing out callings. He's not limited in opportunity, creativity, or in favor. The God who created galaxies with a word is not struggling to create room for your life. When he opens a door for another woman, he doesn't close one for you. When he chooses someone else for a moment, he's not rejecting you. God does not operate from limitation. Only we do. So scarcity is what happens when we trust our timeline more than God's sovereignty. Scarcity is what happens when we measure ourselves instead of listening to God's voice. Scarcity is what happens when we forget that the kingdom of God is not competitive, it's collaborative. Abundance, on the other hand, is steady. Abundance says what God has for her doesn't lessen what God has for me. Abundance says her win does not delay my breakthrough. Abundance says I can celebrate without shrinking. Abundance says God's supply is not threatened by someone else's story. And abundance is rooted in trust. Trust that God knows what he is building in you. Trust that his timing is intentional. Trust that your progress isn't behind schedule. Trust that your life doesn't get smaller because someone else's expands. When we operate from abundance, something inside of us shifts. When we stop seeing each other as competition and start seeing each other as confirmation, proof that God is still working, still moving, still blessing his daughters. When we stop holding back encouragement because we're no longer threatened by someone else's strength, that is a win for everyone. We can stop interpreting someone else's success as our failure, and we can start interpreting it as evidence of God's faithfulness. Women support women when they believe abundance is real. Women can champion each other when fear loses its grip. Women can celebrate freely when they trust that God is in control. So here's the question. Are you reacting from scarcity or abundance? Scarcity flinches. Abundance congratulates. Scarcity competes. Abundance collaborates. Scarcity questions. Abundance trusts. And if you feel scarcity rising inside of you, that's not condemnation. It's an invitation to root yourself deeper in the character of God, to remember that he's not withholding, he's not limited, he's not distracted, and he's not done writing your story. What God has for you is not fragile, It cannot be stolen, substituted, replaced, or relocated. No one else's blessing has the power to take away your own. I remember a season in my life where I was looking for a job and nothing was working out the way I hoped. I interviewed at several places and doors opened, but not fully. Conversations were good, but not necessarily peaceful. And everything looked promising on paper, but inside something just kind of felt off. So one day I was praying and God gave me a really clear picture, as if He was standing right in front of me. I saw a reserved sign sitting at the end of a church pew. And in my spirit, it was as if God was whispering, "The job I have for you is already reserved." I didn't know when, I didn't know where, I didn't know how, but I knew God wasn't scrambling to figure out my future. He wasn't testing to see if I would open the right door. He was preparing me. So fast forward, and I walked into the interview for the position I eventually accepted. And the conversation ends and we stand up and one of the leaders looks at me and says these exact words. "Daira, I feel like this job was meant for you," almost as if it had been on reserve. So what God has for us is not going to be claimed by someone else. No one can take what God has reserved in heaven with your name on it. Now imagine this. What if I had withheld support from the women who got the other jobs? The jobs that were not mine, positions that were not meant for me, opportunities that were never belonging to my story. Or reverse it. Imagine someone refusing to celebrate me when my reserved job finally found me. That's what scarcity does, though. It convinces us that someone else's blessing threatens our own. It makes us hold back. And we don't encourage because we're fearful that we're falling behind. It makes us believe that God is running out of good things to give. So freedom begins here. Celebrate her, support her, pray for her, bless her. Because every time you celebrate another woman, you are declaring to your own heart, my God is not a God of scarcity, and He is a God of abundance, and there will always be enough.